Here's a stat that might surprise you, or maybe, if you spent enough time on a farm, it won't. Farm workers are 21 times more likely to be killed on the job than the average UK worker. Let that sink in for a second. According to the Health and Safety Executive, agriculture still holds the top spot as the most dangerous industry in Britain. It makes up just 1% of the workforce, but nearly a fifth of all workplace deaths. Falls from height, moving machinery, livestock, electricity. Often it's not just one moment, it's a series of small risks that build up over time. Earlier in the summer, we were joined by 3 firefighters from the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service to deliver a farm safety workshop. We had Hunt Forest Group staff, customers and local farmers all in the room and on the floor practicing CPR, applying tourniquets and talking honestly about what can go wrong and what can save a life. In this episode, we'll take you inside that session. You'll hear from Matt Horne, a firefighter who also happens to be a farmer, as he shares first-hand insights from the workshop and his experience responding to emergencies in rural settings. We'll also dig into the reality of why response times matter, what slows them down, and the simple steps we can all take to reduce the risks. This is the HFG Podcast, and today we're talking about staying safe, acting fast, and why, on a farm or in a workshop, every second counts. After walking us through CPR and some emergency response steps, we caught up with the man leading the session, Matt Horne, a firefighter who knows exactly what it's like when something goes wrong in the middle of nowhere, because he also happens to be a farmer. Thanks for joining us, Matt. We appreciate your time and practical knowledge and suggestions you've shared with the workshop group. You're in a pretty unique position, both as a firefighter and a farmer. How did those two occupations come about?
So I've always been a farmer. I was born and bred on a farm, and it was always been it's what I've always wanted to do, farming. Went to Sparshot College, did 2 years at Sparshot College, went straight into agriculture from there, and later down the line, I had a pretty serious accident myself, and after that, I kind of wanted to give something back. And in the local village, there was they were asking for on-call firefighters, and I joined the on-call firefighters. And after a few years, I really enjoyed it and thought I'd do the whole time, and went through the whole time procedure. And here I am now, whole time and farmer.
So I guess, as you just mentioned, you had a pretty bad accident, but I guess that's probably I'm putting words in your mouth, but probably what made you want to start delivering these kind of workshops in the farming community?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I broke my neck quite seriously. I broke 5 vertebrae in my neck, and I was in a halo brace for just over 16 weeks, which put huge pressures on my wife. And I was self-employed doing farm contracting and tree work, and put huge financial and moral sort of pressures on the family and myself. So wanted to try and sort of help out where I can, and it just sort of lit a spark, really. I'm lucky I'm here today to be able to do what I am.
It sounds like
it's very, very serious.
I guess that kind of personal experience also adds a little bit of weight to what you're trying to teach people as well, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been there. I've been that person. I know how that impact can have on the family, and also, if you can prevent someone else doing it I was lucky. And so I just don't, want anyone else to be in the situation that I was, and maybe not be so lucky. So,
yeah, I guess it's probably something people don't think about. It's not just the accident to the person; it's who it impacts as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, very, very much so. The family takes a huge weight on, especially through farming. Whether it be the wives, the family, the children, they're all helping out on the farm, and it's a massive part of it. And as soon as the key worker's gone, then everything can fall apart around that. As a service, we do some great community work, both prevention and safety, but mainly directed towards the urban areas. I could see a gap in the market. Well, a gap where the farmers in the rural area weren't being utilised really very well. And on the back of doing a safety project called Biker Down, I thought, well, it's a very similar sort of thing. And I thought, if we can run something like that for the farming community, it'd be really helpful.
So I guess that answers my next question, but is there a moment or incident either on your farm or on a call out that really made farm safety personal for you?
So yeah, that was a key one. But through the fire service, I've been to a number of incidences on farms. I was also at Winchester doing the large animal rescue as well there, so that brought me onto more farms still. And I think I was just seeing quite a lot of things that I thought, actually, we can do something about this. We need to be better at certain things. And unfortunately, I've also got a lot of friends through farming that have either had serious injuries, life-changing injuries, and there's been two of friends that have lost their lives through farming accidents. So yeah, that really does strike a nerve, and you think, wow, something's not quite right here. We need to be better.
Yeah, I guess that kind of event really hits home, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's, especially when they're so close.
What do you think most people misunderstand or underestimate about accidents on farms?
I think it is that impact on the family or the financial areas, especially if you're a family-run farm. It will have huge impacts on the finances and mental health as well, PTSD and things like that. That's again underestimated. I think the Farmers Weekly and different farming publications, what have you, are highlighting it more and more. But I think until it affects you, you don't really understand it. And I think even these workshops coming together and discussing it, I think it's a really important thing. It just brings it out into the open a bit, and it may highlight a problem that someone doesn't really realise they have. So it can do you know what? Actually, I can probably do a little bit of help, and we can signpost people to the right people. So.
Yeah, that's something I picked up from the workshop, that sort of real experience and, obviously facts and figures are obviously always very impactful, but hearing some real perspective on it always makes it sort of sink in a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it opens people up as well. Once you hear one story, then other people talk about their stories, and I think it just sort of brings it out in the open a little bit more, which can only be a good thing.
For sure. So when fire crews are called out to farms, what's the reality? What kind of scenes do you often arrive to?
It very much depends on the farm. Many farms have really great working practices in place, and everybody's aware of what needs to happen, and which is really helpful to the fire service or emergency services when they turn up. If the information's there, that can be communicated across. That's really important. But then you get the other side where it's maybe a little bit more muddled. People don't really have an understanding of what's necessary, what's coming, and that information gathering initially is really important. So we need to know where the acetylene is, where the chemical store is, what livestock are around, and that information doesn't always come across very well, or for whatever reason, it isn't always wanted to be shared to us. And we need that information because we're obviously trying to protect our firefighters as well as the general community around that.
I guess, it's probably fair to say in some instances people might react in a bit of a state of panic because what's going on. So, if you've got that information in a clear document or, it's written down somewhere that you can access, that's a big help.
Absolutely. And what we've found is when I've been to incidents in the past on farms, and this is quite general actually, that farmers are really, really independent people. They're great solvers of different solutions and what have you. They will overcome a problem. But when it gets to something like a fire or someone's entrapped in machinery and it's out of their control, then they really struggle. And that's when we have to come into place, and that's when the communication's really key. Both sides and confidence of the fire service to say, actually, we've got this. We need you to work alongside us because you're the expert in the machinery. So working with us can overcome an incident much quicker. So That's when we really need to be good on both sides to work together. And that's what I'm really trying to promote in the workshops, that we both need each other. And by doing these workshops, we can build them relationships up. As you mentioned there about information gathering, we're giving out the risk information forms in the workshops. And if they're up to date, that can save so much time. The incident commander can look at that, gather all the information they need relevant, along with a map, ideally. And that can just make it much smoother.
Yeah, I guess in an emergency situation, that kind of information at your fingertips is potentially saves tens of minutes potentially.
Absolutely, yeah, because otherwise you panic a little bit and you forget, I've got this over there, or I've got something happening in the shed over there. So it's all that sort of things come together.
Yeah. One part of the session really hit home for us at Hunt Forest Group: the focus on workshop safety. With busy hands-on workshops across all 7 of our branches, knowing how to respond if something goes wrong on site isn't just useful, it's essential for both our technicians and office staff. What's the very first thing someone should do if they find someone injured or unconscious in the workshop or on the farm?
Straight away, you need to be approached with caution. Because you have to have an understanding why they're there. If it's a chemical breathing in or something falling on them, you don't want to become a victim yourself. So it's really important you don't become a casualty. So approach with caution, and then you need to identify what's happened to them. Are they actually injured, or is it something minor or quite major? In which case, if it's a major, you need to call the emergency services as soon as you can to get someone on the way to help you. And also, is there anyone around the farm also that can help you? So approach with caution. Don't make yourself a casualty. Call the emergency services and let them know. Give them as much information as you can at that time, with a very, very good location. What 3 words is a brilliant tool. I recommend using What 3 words. An emergency service, they all share that. Yeah, don't become a casualty, and do whatever you can, but don't become a casualty yourself. So be safe.
So how important is it for farmers and even children on farms to have some level of first aid knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and it's only becoming more obvious. So there's some very simple steps that you can do to save people's lives, whether it's open and protect an airway, start CPR, prevent a major bleed. These are all things that will save lives. It's the prevention of major bleeds. It's the start the CPR. You've got a better chance of survival if something's done in the early stages and it's done correctly and well. So, yeah, I can't underestimate the need. I think everybody should be practicing CPR right across every generation and industry, and especially in farming. I think a good understanding of how to prevent major bleeds, to stop people bleeding out, and crush injuries as well, because it's what not to do as well as what to do with the crush injuries. So have a good understanding of that.
And that was obviously a key focus of the workshop, and our staff and some of our customers got hands on and practiced some of those techniques, and I think they all walked away from that feeling that they may be a little bit scared of potentially doing it on something they might find, but also it's definitely helpful for them that they knew what to do, I guess.
Yeah, I think it all comes with confidence. In the fire service, we're very lucky because we're training regularly, and it builds confidence. The more you do it, the more confident you become. And I think, again, we in the farming industry, we do farms safety at work, first aid farming. First aid at work training, but it doesn't really cover the injuries that you're likely to have on a farm. It is those life-saving interventions that we can do as farmers, and they're quite basic, really. But by practicing, you only become better at it. So I'll say, practice as much as you can, even if it's only within your own groups.
I guess, probably fair to say every incident is different. It's probably, as we mentioned, every farm's different, and it's probably quite difficult to, pinpoint a standard occurrence you go to. They're probably all, anything potential. You could be faced with anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So animal incidences involving animals with crash injuries are really important. So obviously, if that's happened, you've got to make sure that you can isolate the individual, the casualty, from the whatever's happening around them, so without becoming a casualty yourself. And to chemicals, which are really important to us. We have hazmat or hazardous material type training that we do for, and then you tend to have multiple casualties to entrapments in machinery, which is obviously very serious and needs quick intervention to prevent it from getting worse. Yeah, just about anything. Impalements as well is a big one. You'd be surprised how many people get impaled on things.
So what would you say are the most common mistakes people make in that first critical moment when somebody's hurt?
As I mentioned earlier, really it's becoming a casualty themselves, rushing in too quickly. So it's really identify the danger, identify what's happened. Don't rush in. Once you've found that it's a safe environment or you can do something, then that's the time to get as much information as you possibly can.
So be calm, keeping a clear head, and
absolutely
thinking about what's happened and why it's happened. Yeah,
definitely, and get the emergency services there running as soon as you can. But equally, if you're going to commit to something like CPR, you want to do that, get that information across, and get the ambulance on the way before you start the CPR. It's no good starting and stopping and starting. You want to get the ambulance rolling or whoever, and then you can carry on doing what you need to do without having to stop and start.
So can you talk about the role that What 3 Words plays when it comes to speeding up emergency response times on farms?
Yeah, What 3 Words is a tool that we're using more and more in emergency services, and with even individuals in the appliance themselves, they can look on their own phones to assist the driver or the commander whilst they're gathering other information. So What 3 Words, what we're asking is, if you have maps on farms, to place the What 3 Words on the maps ahead of when you need it. It's great for contractors and things like that, but really to identify the location into the gateway into the field or the farm. It may even be 2 What 3 Words, one to the initial road and then one to the further one. So go to this What 3 Words and then go to this one from there.
I guess that's probably just as important as the location of the incident, isn't it?
Absolutely. It really is, because with the rural settings, we've been to stubble fires, machinery fires that have been in a field. We can see the fire, but we haven't been able to work out how to get there because there's been a lot of crossing of roads like the M3, the 303, the A30, where we can see it, but we can't actually locate the fire until, sometimes when you're losing precious time.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really valuable tool, and we're really trying to promote it.
Of course, the challenges don't stop with the incident itself. Working alone in remote areas is a reality for many in agriculture, and it's something that demands both awareness and preparation. One person who knows this well is Dave Wills. By day, he's a precision ag support specialist here at Hunt Forest Group, but outside of work, he also serves as a retained firefighter. That dual role gives him a unique perspective on safety, both in the field and as an emergency responder. Dave joined us to talk about what it's like working solo in rural environments and how his experience as a firefighter shapes the way he thinks about safety. I guess from time to time you find yourself working alone in the middle of nowhere. What's your routine to stay safe on site?
Personally for me, I've got a bit of a mix with my role, so a bit of office-based stuff and on-site working, and generally that would be on my own. So if I am working on my own, what I would tend to do is obviously alert my manager of where I'm going for the day, and then once I turn up on site, I tend to try and find someone on the farm just to say I'm here and I'm doing that job, so they know I'm here. They would possibly ask me, how long do you think you're going to be doing that job? I'd maybe give them a rough indication of time, and then potentially they might want to check in on me after a period of time. When I'm actually working, I would always carry my mobile phone with me in my top pocket, so that if I did have an accident, or there was a situation where I needed it quickly, I could grab that mobile phone and, call for help. So that's one thing I always tend to do.
So what kind of tools or apps do you rely on to stay connected or protected?
With my, current work vehicle, we embrace the tracker system. So we got trackers on all our vehicles, certainly like the service vehicles have those as well. So anyone can sort of see where you are. If you are sort of working alone, and your manager potentially might just want to check up and see whether you're still on farm or whether you've finished. If you've given them an indication of how long you might be and you're still there, that's a good indication to show where you are at certain times.
Without going into specific incidents, can you share what kinds of situations tend to be the most challenging for emergency crews in a rural setting?
So I think in a rural setting, with my firefighter role, when we're going into an incident, access is a big thing. So we need to know that we can get access to the incident. What 3 words is a really important thing for us for rural locations. We can get an exact pinpoint of where we need to be. With farmers helping us as well, we can potentially make sure gates and good access is easily accessible for everyone. Then obviously the terrain. So can we get our vehicles down those tracks? Are they wide enough? Is it, hard enough on the track to get vehicles? We're not going to get stuck. And then when we're actually at the incident, we're looking at, looking for any unknown hazards in that area. So depending whether it's a fire or, a rescue situation with someone trapped, we need to be looking around us and seeing what sort of hazards are in the area. So basically, a sort of a form of risk assessment before we actually carry out any work. So we're always looking for, something that's going to potentially fall on us, whether it is, bales or whether there's any gas bottles, if it's near a farm workshop and there's a fire. So we need to, just make sure that we assess that situation before we go into it, really.
You already told us your protocol when you're working alone, but, how important is location sharing or checking protocols in your view?
Yeah, I think it's very important, really. As I said, we embrace a sort of tracker system on our vehicles. And then, as I say, what 3 words for location if you are in trouble, and you can use that. I have that on my phone. That's really good for pinpointing your exact location. From my, John Deere side of things, where we work on the technology, the JD Link sort of system where we can look at machines on the app and things like that. We're finding more and more sort of farm managers are now embracing it just really for that safety point of view for their workers. So, if they can see where their machines are, they can see they're moving. And then potentially if that machine is not moving, they can put a call into that operator and just check that they are okay. And if they're out there sort of longer than they actually thought they might be, they can check up on those people. So yeah, it's a very important thing nowadays with safety on the farm.
Dave's insights remind us that safety isn't just about what happens in the moment. It's about the habits, tools, and awareness we carry with us every day. According to the Health and Safety Executive, agriculture remains the most dangerous industry in Britain. In the 2022-23 reporting year, 27 people lost their lives due to farming and related activities. The most common cause of death? Being injured by animals, particularly cattle. Other frequent causes included contact with machinery, falls from height, and being struck by vehicles. The fatal injury rate in agriculture is around 21 times higher than average across all industries, and it's not just older workers, though they account for 80% of fatalities. Even children have been victims. The youngest person killed in the last year was a 3-year-old child. Men continue to make up the vast majority of fatal injuries, with 95% of those killed in 2024-25 being male, a trend consistent with previous years. These numbers aren't just statistics, they're reminders of how quickly things can go wrong and why preparation, awareness and training matters. Before we wrapped up, we asked Matt, a firefighter and farmer, what farmers can do to make a real difference when it comes to safety. Not just in the moment something goes wrong, but well before that. Matt's message was clear: preparation saves lives. Whether it's knowing how to respond, having the right tools on hand, or simply making sure someone knows where you are, small actions can make a big impact. So can you talk us through any real incidents where something has gone badly wrong on a farm?
Yeah, so I don't want to mention any specifics because obviously we want to protect the integrity of the farms and farmers that work there. But this year in particular, it's following the cycle of 2022, which was a really hot summer, dry summer, and we are going to significant amounts of standing crop fires, combine fires, tractor fires in fields now. And they can escalate really quickly just because of the climate change more than anything. And again, I guess I'm changing your question a little bit, but it's more what we're asking people to do is just not put themselves at risk, but try and remove any hazards that they can without putting themselves at risk, because things can go wrong very quickly, and we have seen it. But I don't really want to go into the details of that too much.
So, as you mentioned, we've certainly seen it as well, machinery fires in various areas across the south. What can farm owners or workers do in advance that genuinely helps first responders when they arrive? Yeah,
so really good question, which we go into a lot in the workshop. So key is the location, and can a fire appliance get there? Just because a tractor can get down the track, it doesn't mean to say a fire appliance can get down the track. When you're combining, making sure you've got availability to things like cultivators, discs, so you can make fire breaks, water bowsers to damp down areas. It's all about thinking ahead really and planning for the worst case scenario. And I've been really heartened to see that off the back of the workshops, I've been talking to farmers and say, oh, do you know what? We had an old slurry tanker in the back of the shed that we weren't using it, and we've converted that to follow the combine around for water. It's brilliant things like that farmers are doing. So the message is getting across, and so it's really good. And also it's that working together in partnership with fire service and the farmers working together to overcome an incident quickly.
So do things like visible gate numbers, clear access and up-to-date contact info actually make a difference? They
really do. So if we've got clear access and get through, it obviously speeds things up much quicker. I know rural crime is really on the up at the moment, and we don't want people to become vulnerable to rural crime. So I understand that people are putting machinery in front of certain gateways to prevent rural crime. But what I would say is, if you have done that and we're coming, move it in advance of us getting there. There's going to be, or at least prepare to move it, so we can working together to overcome these things is a great tool.
What's the one thing you wish everyone knew when it comes to calling 999 from a farm?
To the location, accurate locations we talked about. We've been shouting about this all the time. The risks that are expected to be found by the fire service. So an incident commander, the first thing they will do before they do any kind of firefighting or put the firefighters in the danger area will be gather as much information about risks as possible. So again, have a good understanding of the risks you've got in the area. And is there, most importantly, is anybody at harm? Do they need rescuing immediately? That's our major response. So we will do as much as we possibly can to save a life. If it's machinery, then our risk appetite drops a little bit. So it's life as our highest thing. So is anyone at harm? Good location. What risks are involved? How large an area is on fire? That'd be our major things that we would like to know.
So it's kind of all about keeping a calm, clear head and trying to give as much information as possible, really, then.
Yeah, absolutely. And control will help ask for that information. But if you can just pass it over in a calm, controlled way, that's great. And again, with the risk forms that we've been promoting and trying to get people to have, that helps because you can just read it off a board as opposed to trying to think of it when it's at the heat of the moment. Okay.
So before we finish, what have you been dealing with so far this summer?
So again, like I mentioned before, today's a little bit of an anomaly where we've got a little bit of rain outside, but it's been a very, very dry summer. I think harvests are really almost halfway through harvest already, most people, and it's not even August. But we've had a huge amount of wildfires that we're dealing with. And on the back of that, we're asking people to be very, very careful when they're not to have barbecues out because it's too hot and they just tend to get left. Make sure you dispose of cigarettes properly. Take your litter home with you and don't have campfires, bonfires, things like that. In the dry weather, it's just good common sense, but people tend to forget sometimes. And barbecues are really a big problem for us. There's especially the mobile ones where people just have a barbecue. They don't tend to put it out properly and go away. So have a picnic instead of a barbecue. If you can avoid having any kind of hot flammable material around in this weather, that's brilliant.
Yeah, well, like you say, you'd like to think it's common sense, but
absolutely.
In the heat of the moment, people do forget that, don't they?
Absolutely.
If someone's listening and wondering whether their farm or business is up to scratch on fire safety, where can they go to get help, advice, or even book a workshop?
So firstly, I would say go to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service website. There's a safety section on that you can go to, and there's farm fire safety, so there's lots of information on there. I'd also say if you've got a local community fire on-call fire service, pop down there, introduce yourself, ask some questions, and if you can, invite them to your farm, because if them local risks are really important for the fire service, and if it's all about building relationships up, even doing some training with yourselves would be really helpful. So make yourself known to the local fire service, build them communications and relationships, and invite them along to the farm so they can advise you and point out things that maybe you don't see yourself, because we're all very used to what's around us and we don't necessarily always pick up on the risks ourselves. So really useful to do that. That's called a 72D visit. So they're known as a 72D visit, but it's a risk information for properties and premises in their area. If you're interested in attending or hosting a workshop, please get in touch through the inquiries forms on the website.
Well, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate your time. And to everyone listening, let's keep looking out for each other and stay safe out there. So, what can we take from all of this? Farm safety isn't about ticking a box or following rules just for the sake of it. It's about making sure you, or someone you care about, gets home at the end of the day. Because when something goes wrong, it's really dramatic at first. It's often quiet and unseen, a misstep on a ladder, a PTO left running, a gate left open. But in those moments, the right action, with the right training, can buy you the most precious thing, time. It's easy to think it won't happen to me, but the truth is, safety isn't just about you, It's about the people who might have to respond, the ones who care, the ones who wait. So talk to the people around you, share your location, get trained in basic first aid and CPR. And if you don't already have What 3 Words installed on your phone, that's your first job today. If you'd like to know more about farm safety workshops or request a visit, head to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue website. You'll find details there on how to get involved. You can find the link below in the description. Thanks for listening, stay safe, look out for each other, and we'll see you again for the next episode of the HFG Podcast.